So I'm Linde Freya Tangelder from Destroyers Builders, which is my studio in Belgium already for 10 years, working on different small or larger scale projects in the field of design or art or architecture. Wonderful to have you here and to finally meet your whole team from all over the world.
And we're thrilled to meet you. I wish we could be here for 8 hours. I think we probably won't be here for that long. I don't think.
No.
Let's see.
We start, see what time it is when we end up.
There we go. It'll probably be dark outside, but
But the light is here, so that's...
the light's here.
Yeah.
Speaking of lights, your design approach balances deconstruction with creation, destroying with building. Makes sense. When do you think you were first drawn to destruction as creative force?
I think that that started when, as a kid, for sure. Actually, my youth was full of model making, small furniture, doll houses, but also already small furniture making with different materials. So maybe that is the start of the making, at least. The destruction, maybe in my time at Design Academy Eindhoven, where I studied. I just really like to mix different materials. How do they connect sometimes impossible materials like sawing glass, or I don't know. There were so many contradictions in the design process, and in general you learn a lot of destruction. And if you take things apart, when you take things out of the context. I think deconstruction and seeing it in a different time perspective, I think that is very important in my work. Something very old, if you take it in different piece and you assemble it in another way, it's a new piece again. So I really think that destruction and building together makes a perfect explanation of what is design. So that is actually why I started to name my studio Destroyers Builders.
It sounds like a good name for a studio.
It's actually nice, and I like the idea that people think, are you a construction company, or and then in the end it's actually quite tactile and quite soft. What I do, quite sculptural and not that harmful, I would say. So I like that contrast. On the other hand, I also use my personal name more and more, just because I like that people know that I'm so small team and it's not a big company. So.
How would you describe your design inheritance? Whether that's personal influences, broader movements, what does that mean to you?
Just after my study, I was fascinated with architecture. And I even doubt, like, maybe I should go study architecture, just because I really like to look at buildings, different time frames, seeing modernism, ancient buildings. I really liked each detail, but I also liked building materials like bricks. That is actually quite close to ceramics, like stone or wood. So I like it in a raw way. And that is, in the end, I'm not an architect and I don't have the personality to be an architect, but I think that is a big inspiration. Architecture, modernism. There has been a time that I looked a lot at Le Corbusier, at Carpa, but then also after more artists like Per Kirkeby, Brancusi, different artists that I'm really fascinated with, and that have a very sculptural way of making. And something in between architecture, in between artists, artistic world, I find myself somewhere in the middle.
And the rawness is really important.
The rawness is very important, and I think the brutalism is, of course, a direction that I'm drawn to. So
you seem drawn to brutalism, and yet your designs are so warm and welcoming in a way.
Yes.
How do you merge these two?
But I think rawness and warmness are not that far away from each other. So for me, when it's honest materiality and when you see how it's made, if you see the construction, I think it has something quite natural, not fake. And I like that, and I think it's even more human in that way. Of course, I like textures, and you have a brutal textures. In a way, that's also warm feeling. You give texture and vivid appearance to products. So this is, of course, a good example of it. Working on models in wax, so sculpting by hand, wax texture, and then translated into a mold that is made in metal. Still having that same texture for my models in it. And then the glass is blown in the metal mold. Yeah.
And this is the perfect transition to talk about your lamp, wax stone light, which merges the timeless and the fleeting. So you have the timeless with the stone, and that invokes nature and the enduringness of nature. But then you have wax, which by its nature changes all the time. So as a designer, where do you balance the timeless and fleeting?
I think it's a beautiful question, and it's actually quite on point of the process that I went through for this project. So it started as a fascination from materials that are going from liquid to solid. So that is water. Simple water can become ice. Wax can become liquid, watery substance. But glass as well is, of course, the perfect material. So it's mixing this with the idea of stone blocks and about building different totems or different sculptures in a way. So it has really both the fluid and the very heavy stone-like feeling. But of course, the transparency and the light inside gives a very light and translucent feeling. But in general, I think that two values, if you can capture it in one product, I think it's very interesting result.
Your beautiful designs are going to end up in people's homes. How do you hope people will feel around those designs? Like, how do you hope your designs will impact people?
Actually, that also tells something about the timelessness that I hope that my pieces will be. That it could be made 40 years ago, or that is very modern. Like, I think that in my work, sometimes you are a little bit confused. It could be, it's not typical a trend or something that I strive for. Actually, I try to avoid it. So I really hope that it's vivid and it's tactile. And it's like a warm feeling in the surroundings. So, for example, the feeling of the light and the warmness of the light, I think that is an important value in a house in general. But I think there are so many products in the market that are too polished and too perfect, and I like when it can live. If I would make something in wood, I like when it's cracked. When it's glass, I rather don't have cracks, but I like when it's a textured feeling, and even metal, I really try to transform it into something tactile. Just by brushing or by sanding it in a more natural way, I think even metal can be soft and can be warm.
It does feel like your designs, speaking of timelessness, could be in a fantasy book, like a story set in the past. It could be in a sci-fi book, story set in the future. So are there any stories or books that have influenced your design?
I'm not a big reader, or especially not a fantasy reader. But in my sketches, for example, I'm quite, it's all about fantasy and about freedom. So I think this is something that I love the most. But I also really like to dive into books about material. For example, I have this book only about bricks and all different textures in bricks, different buildings, ancient and new again, very modern techniques. So I really like to to read books when they are a little bit interdisciplinary. So in a way, when there is a touch of materiality, a touch of art, and a touch of architecture.
Beautiful. What do you see as the role of the designer in creating inclusive environments?
But I think that there is a big value of designers that are not typical designers. So I think just searching for that balance in interiors that are not too slick, just what I told you, that it's not too cold and perfect. I think it should be more human, and I think that makes it inclusive. So when it's understandable, of course, but I think, for example, everybody thinks about ice blocks, for example, with my lamps, and it's something so easy to think of. So in a way, but I still think that is from big value, that you feel home and that you feel comfortable, especially nowadays. For example, office spaces, I think it's so important to have a home feeling. And I think there's way more steps to take there, and I hope to be part of that story and future.